All right, linebacker Bangally Kamara decides he's going to redshirt and enter the transfer portal. Did he quit on the team? We get into it. Locked on Gamecock starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler. It is a terrific Tuesday. Gotta admit, I hate myself for even saying that. That was not my favorite. Regardless, we're not going to start the show over. It is a great day. We have a great show for you, and we have a lot to discuss on what I thought was going to be a pretty slow news day. Turned out to be very wrong about that. But first and foremost, I want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in and making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Remember, guys, we are free and available podcasts wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Remember, go to FanDuel, sign up if you have not already. If you don't enjoy winning money, I don't know what to tell you, because it's just, in this economy, great time to do it. But place your first $5 bet and you get $200 in bonus bets right off the bat, guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Let's get started with the show. How about that? So breaking news that came out today. I don't know if it's breaking news. It came out a little bit earlier today. Bangally Kamara announced that he is going to redshirt and sit out the remainder of the year and then plans to enter the transfer portal. Now, this sparked a lot of reaction. I wouldn't say outrage, but just a lot of reaction from fans all over. This is a growing trend, and we're going to get into the trend as well as get into him specifically and what it means for the team and all that good stuff. And I think the fan, a lot of the fans feel like that person is quitting on the team. I'm going to give you a different perspective on it. But also, I'm not going to disagree with you. Okay. So if you don't know what's happening, it's this new trend that's happening in college football. We saw it start really with the Matthew Sluka, the quarterback at UNLV, who decided he was going to sit out the rest of the year because of an NIL disagreement, and then he was going to enter the transfer portal by the end of the season. That was like 3 games into the year. There was a disagreement. They didn't get something in writing. I don't know. Both sides are probably to blame. The truth is always somewhere in between. That's what a lot of wise people always tell me. So I don't know who, and I'm not going to pretend to know anything about UNLV's NIL situation. But now we have seen this become a consistent, more consistent practice from some players. Remember, the redshirt rule in college football right now says you can play in 4 games. You don't, like, it's not like it used to be where it's like, well, you have to sit out the entire year. You can play in 4 games and you still can redshirt and sit out a year. We saw it 2 days ago with South Carolina's upcoming opponent, Jaheim Otis, who was a starter as a freshman, like a 4-star top 100 recruit, kid that came in, lost like 75 pounds his freshman year so he could earned the starting job, and then decided, you know what? After 2 years, it didn't get as much playing time. He posted something yesterday saying that he had decided to redshirt and blah, blah, blah. The season hadn't gone the way they thought it would. Whatever. I'm gonna set that aside for a second to talk about how this specifically, the reaction is to be. Let's hold our judgments on these kids quitting. And I'm going to let you in on a little story time about me personally. I played college baseball, as I've mentioned on here before. I quit the team my junior year. I was upset about something. I was 20, 21 years old. I was even more emotional than I am on those instant overreaction videos that I post. Back then, I was even more emotional. And I got upset about something that was stupid, something that grown me knows was stupid now, and I quit. And then once I said I quit, I was too embarrassed to go back and then say, you know what, I was in the wrong, and then not do it. It's something I've regretted for most of my adult life, like just to be honest. And I'm not saying that's what this kid is going to feel, but I will say the quitting part, I at least understand the emotion and the feelings that go into it, because these are 18 to 22-year-old kids that are already running hot on emotions in general. and don't have, they're not fully formed adults yet. They have a lot of people in their ear now. And I at least get, this is going to sound like an odd way to phrase it, but the indecision of the decision, if that makes sense. I get the fact that it's like, so-and-so, I'm going to get more playing time. Like, what if like the grass is greener over here? Like now more than ever, you're going to see that type of not fully thought through decision-making from 18 to 22-year-old kids. So I get that. I'm not going to be mad at him for making the decision. What I will say from my own personal experience, you might regret it one day, man. You might regret it one day. And I will also say, doing it 4 games in, the Jaheim Otis one in particular was like, it was blatantly obvious that decision was made and it influenced heavily from an agent. I don't know if that's the case with Bangally Kamara. I don't. He's only played 70 total snaps in the season. He did just play a season high 30 snaps against Ole Miss. So it's not like something that's like growing frustrations with not being able to play, because he just played a season high snap total against Ole Miss, 30 total snaps. 30 of his 70 total snaps came this weekend. That's right off the top of my head. 30 out of 70. That's 42.9% on the dot. Check it at home. So, like, he also had 23 against Kentucky. Now, an overwhelming amount of his total snaps came in those 2 games, and I don't know if he had frustrations. He clearly wasn't seeing as much of the field as he probably wanted to see. But it's also a kid that I think he went into college in 2020. He's a transfer from Pitt. He's not going to transfer again. It's his 3rd season. It's a growing trend that's happening in college football, and it sucks. It sucks. I'm not going to come down on this kid and say, you're an idiot, you're making a bad decision, this is stupid, blah, blah, blah. What I am going to say, are we sure the grass is always green on the other side? It's not. It's usually not. If you can go play, because listen, not everyone's going to make the NFL. I'm not saying this to be rude. Maybe he flourishes wherever he goes. But maybe you just want to go play your final year. Then hats off to you, man. Go do it. I fully respect that. Totally get it. But if this is something that is being influenced by an agent, which are now legally a part of the game, that sucks. Jaheim Otis posted that whole thing yesterday from Alabama, and he brought up the fact that he's like, please respect my decision. Any questions or like, things that you guys want to discuss or interests or whatever, please talk to my agents. He lists the agents' names, which that was the agent typing it out for him, listing their own names. And now he's done. I don't see, and here's the other part that's weird about it, but it's October 8th. You got midterms. Like, I don't know the entire school schedule, but I know we're around there. I don't know if you stay in school for this semester, if you pull out completely, if you I don't know all that. I do know that agents being involved legally in this game, there are very few. Listen, Jerry Maguire's a great movie. That is not how sports agents work. That's not how. Anytime someone's coming to you like, hey, let me get a piece of your money and your potential earnings by guiding you with what I think is your best interest, usually doesn't have your best interest in mind, guys. Shocking take there, huh? Shocking take. Now, let's go through some of the stuff there. I don't know all the ins and outs of it. I'm sure we'll learn more as it comes out. But it's frustrating. It is frustrating. So, listen, so these are some of the numbers from, so the 2020 season did not count toward Kamar's eligibility because of the COVID year, remember? He played each of the next 3 seasons, totaling 37 games while amassing 115 tackles, including 11.5 tackles for a loss, while collecting 5 quarterback sacks. On this season so far, I immediately went to PFF to see what he graded out. There's no data for it because he hasn't redshirted enough snaps for that to happen. He's got 9 total tackles, 2 assisted, 7 solo, 1 tackle for loss for -1 yard. Not trying to be a dick, not trying to be rude. not exactly a guy that is going to be super heavily missed. He's 12th in the defense in total tackles. Like I think they'll be okay. I think they'll be okay. But just a weird situation. I'll tell you what I think bothers me more than anything, and it does stem from the Jaheim Otis thing and the Sluka thing, is not just the agents getting involved because the disagreements on the money part, but what worries me about this is like the future of this that worries me is, what if you get off to a fast start? Like, what if you get off to a 4-0 start? Kind of like the Sluka kid, the quarterback, right? Like UNLV was 3-0. He was putting up good numbers. That also, by the way, Sluka specifically is a kid that transferred in July, I think, from a different school. He had been at UNLV for like 2 months. If you have no allegiances to that school, like that I think as a college football fan, that's what sucks the most. Like as a fan, we sit here and we're so prideful of our teams and the traditions and like the pageantry and all those things. And it's something that outsiders don't get, and we don't really care if they get it or not, because it's not like we're going to change. This is our thing, right? This is like our thing. You don't have to get it. I love it, right? Like it's what makes college football so great. It sucks that this whole situation being impacted by people who probably don't give a blank about college football, right? Like that's the one thing that's been so bothersome to me through all of this, is all of these decisions that have consistently been made, whether it be about NIL, whether it be about conference realignment, TV contracts, all these other things, they have been influenced and impacted and like they impact the fan a ton. It's the last person that they have factored into the decision. It's the last person they have factored into the decision as the fan. It's it's your consumer. It's your consumer. And they're like, we don't care. There's so much money to be made. Who cares? Who cares if the people that are watching our product give a blank about how we're handling the product? It's tough. But it's just the reality of where we are in college sports, and it's not going to change anytime soon. I tell you what is going to change soon is the topic at hand, because we're going to move on to some more some other stuff. We're going to get into a breakdown of an idea, a hot take I came up with today that I'm excited about. We're also going to get into some breaking news that happened right before I hit record. Luckily, usually it happens the other way. It's like as soon as I hit end recording, somebody comes out and is like, oh, by the way, guess what just happened? All your news is now irrelevant. So there's that. Before we get into all that, I do want to say real quick and give a shout out to our friends at Roy, the Roy app. I told you about this last week. It's a really, really cool situation that Roy has put into place. And it helps you get involved in the NIL game and let you have a little bit more. Oh, there goes the microphone. Have a little bit more control over what goes on and the players getting paid and all that kind of stuff. Listen, the Roy app lets you directly support your favorite athletes, not even just your teams, your favorite athletes. Unlike collectives where you make a donation to a general fund, Roy lets you choose a specific athlete you want to support. You back the players you care about, and in return, you get exclusive content after the season, like personal videos and updates and all that kind of stuff. The best part, it's risk-free. If the athlete transfers or doesn't create the content, you get your money back. That's incredible. This week, I am choosing. Who do I want to choose this week? You know who I'm going to choose this week? I am going to choose Nyck Harbor. Nyck Harbor, and for good reason, because I have an idea. But I just contributed. Hold on. I just contributed $100 to his campaign on Roy, and I want you to join me by making a payment of as little as $10. Just listen, $10. When enough of us contribute, it's not just about the dollars, it's about the message we send to Nyck Harbor or any other players together. Our collective support helps them keep connected to the school. You know what? Why don't we also, if you don't want to do Nyck Harbor, because he's going to be a subject in the next segment, why don't we give it to Debo Williams? How about that? Especially after we just lost a linebacker. Why don't we give it to a linebacker that's staying? Contribute 10 or as much as you can to the Roy campaign, and our collective support helps you and keep them connected to our school. listen, the other part of it is Roy is doing their part to bring fans closer to their schools and the athletes with an exciting giveaway. Right now, Roy is giving one lucky fan 2 tickets to any game of their choice this November. Here's how you enter. Just download Roy in the App Store or Google Play. Use the code Locked On when signing up. Those are 2 separate words. Locked On, 2 separate words when signing up, and you're entered. If you're already on Roy, make a payment to any athlete's campaign that you choose. You'll also be automatically entered. There's no purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Go to joinroy.com for official rules. Download Roy and try it out. There's no subscription, no recurring fees, and for as little as $10, you can get involved in the NIL game. Roy, support the players, change the game. All right, up next, we're going to continue talking a little bit about the transfer portal, some changes that were made just an hour before we hit record from the NCAA. We'll get into that next. Locked On Gamecocks continues right after this. All right, we are back, and we continue on talking briefly about the transfer portal and some things that are being changed. Now, right before we hit record, the NCAA made an announcement. They are officially, as of right now, like effective immediately, they are changing the time window for the portal and the portal window. Sounds like I'm in a sci-fi movie. From 45 days to 30 days. So at the end of the regular season, I think it's the start of championship week in terms of for conference championship games. When that window opens, I think last year it was from then until January 4th, I want to say. That 30-day window, or however long it was, that former 45-day window is now 30 days. There's also the portal in the spring, which was, I believe, already 30 days, but now every single window of the 2 they have, they're going to be 30 days long. Remember, you also have the other one where it's like if your coach leaves, you get an automatic, like the portal opens up starting from that day. It happened at Alabama last year. It happened at Michigan with Jim Harbaugh when he went to the NFL. So that portal window still stays in effect, but the actual concrete days that were 45 calendar days, those are now 30. So you get a calendar month to make your decision and leave. That's all I have on this so far. It just, like I said, it just came out as we're about to hit record and talk about, just yet another, I wouldn't even say it's a unique change to the game. It just feels like it's just an ongoing change. Here we go. I'm going to pull this up right now. The Division I committee has officially shortened the transfer portal windows. So from 45 to 30 days. That means this year specifically, the 2 windows that'll be open for football, right, is December 9th to 28th, and then April 16th through the 25th. College basketball will open up after the second round of the tournament. So I guess they would be that Monday after the second round of the tournament. And then go on for 30 days as well. So that's it. I think this is good for a number of reasons. I think that here's what we're missing the most in from the administrative and coaching side of it, not just for the players, but from the administrative and coaching side of it. One thing that has been missing is we don't feel bad for millionaires ever, right? Like it's just a thing, like societal thing, whatever. We're never going to feel bad for college coaches because they make so much money. So we have all these like expectations are even higher. The money in college sports now, especially from coaching and coaching salaries, not even just from the head coaching jobs, but from like, assistant coaching jobs, there's more money than ever in it. There's higher contracts than there ever has been. And there's more jobs than ever because they continuously allow more and more staff to be in place. Look at Florida. They have like 1,000 different people on that staff, right? So that being said, what they do need is a more concrete, structured calendar for the coaches. Because, listen, we all work, right? I was bitching and moaning earlier about wanting an hour nap, okay? Just wanted an hour nap. Wasn't allowed to have it. That's neither here nor there. But what I'm saying is you want to make sure you still have time for things that aren't work related. We expect so much of these coaches. you also want to make sure they're able to go, to their kids' baseball games or take their kids to school or have family dinner or what the H ever, right? So those things I feel like are still things that need to be in place because the calendar is so chaotic, especially this past year. It's good to see them making some sort of changes to that. All right, moving on from that. Hot take time. Here's a hot take for you. I'm not saying that Nyck Harbor is not going to pan out the way you thought it would. I will say this. He has not so far, and that's a fair thing to say. We'll get into some of the reasons why here in a second. But here's the hot take. The recruit you got to commit from this week, Jordan Gidron, I think that kid could be everything you wanted Nyck Harbor to be. I think Jordan Gidron might be what we all wanted and assumed and thought Nyck Harbor was going to be. And again, that's not a knock on Nyck Harbor. If anything, I hope they're both on the field at the same time next year, and both of them are as explosive as you thought they would be. Here's the thing. Nyck Harbor comes in. He is 6'5", 240, freak athlete, 5-star, incredible physical specimen, track star that plays football, learning the game of football. Okay? 10-300. I'm just going through some of the numbers right here. 10-300, 20.55 200, which is insane. Also has run a 10.11. Goodness. 100-meter dash. He's run a 10-100. Ranks third all-time in program history, by the way, and a 20.2 200. Is the second fastest all-time at USC. That's incredible. Nyck Harbor is a great athlete, and I want more than anything for that kid to pan out, okay? Here's the thing. So little time on the football field coming out of high school. Also, he still wants to run track. And, dude, go do it. Like, follow your passions, follow your dreams, all that. I get it. So it still, though, hasn't translated to the field because Nyck Harbor needs more time to learn how to become a football player. Insert Jordan Gidron from Ridgeview High School in Columbia, South Carolina. Homegrown kid in the 803. I don't know what zip code that is. Ours is 29072. But a homegrown kid in the 803 from Columbia, South Carolina, in the shadows of Williams-Brice Stadium. I mean, you want to talk about a storyline for Gamecock fans. You can keep this kid in. He is currently in the 247 composite. He is ranked 185th in the country. He's the 20th best wide receiver, the second best player in the state. He is 6'2", 185, okay? And by the way, right, so he has the size. By the way, he's a track star. Oh, and also, by the way, he's a freak, like a physical freak. Registered a 122-inch standing broad jump, right? So let me do the quick math on that. A 10-2 standing broad jump, that is twitchy. That is twitchy, y'all. Mainly because he's only 17, right? Or 16. I don't know. He recorded that as a junior in high school on the combine circuit, competing. He won the upper state. I don't know the exact phrasing on it, but he won the upper state state title. I think he finished third or fifth in the 100 in the entire state. He ran a 10.5500, right? Also ran a 21.56 in the 200, a 7.2360, 60 meters, not 60 yards. And then a 10.68 in the 100, but he has been recorded as a 10.55 in the 100 as well. Here's the thing, guys. He has the size that's already something on the roster you don't have. It's one of the things that stands out most. And it's one of the reasons I love this, what Mike Fury's done so well in this recruiting class is that he's gone out and got kids that are like, hey, this is an immediate need. It's an immediate lack that we have on the current roster. I'm going to go address it. And he went out and did that exact thing. That is awesome. Okay. Going out and get a kid that addresses a position need is one thing. Going in there to get a guy who addresses a physical need and a lack of what you currently have on the roster, you have two. I think you had 2 total players out of 15 receivers on that roster, 11 out of 12 scholarship players and 15 total players you have at the receiver position, only 2 were over 6'2". Delon Campbell and then Nyck Harbor, 6'4" and 6'5". Now you got a kid who's 6'2" and a half and 185, and that's in high school. You saw the physical transformations that freshmen made in the offseason last year. You saw Dylan Stewart coming in from from 245 or 255 to 270, and the physical transformation you make, especially at that age, huge job. And that's something he can do. So, South Carolina needs a receiver. I was one of the ones banging the drum saying, listen, there's always somebody that steps up. We're through 5 games and no one has stepped up. Your leading receiver, Mazio Bennett, is averaging like 40 yards a game. You don't have anybody averaging over 3 receptions a game. You need somebody. I don't know if he's able to come in and do it right away, but I do think this kid has a chance to be everything that we thought Nyck Harbor would have been so far. Nyck Harbor is, let me add it up real quick, 17 games into his college career. He hasn't played in 17 games, but 12-game season last year, through 5 right now. It's a year and a half into his college career. He's not even halfway through his sophomore season yet. But I think the expectations for him as a 5-star, especially in this program who hasn't signed a ton of 5-stars, hardly any at that position, if any, they were huge. They might have been too high. Admittedly, they might have been too high. But now you get a kid who's played the position, right? He played in 2023. He did have to undergo surgery, but prior to his injury, man, caught 17 passes for 121 yards. Had a touchdown, also a kickoff return for a touchdown. Like, he's an athlete. I'm sure he'll be able to bounce back from the injury, obviously, in this day and age. That's not a career-ending thing ever. Kids come back from that faster and faster more than ever. This is a kid that checks the boxes physically that very few players can, right? He may not be Ryan Williams, he may not be Jeremiah Smith, he may not be Cam Coleman down at Auburn, but a top 200 recruit with size and speed. Here's one thing, too. I'm guilty of doing this. And it's like, you ever seen that meme where it's like somebody watching the Olympics, like, oh, that's pathetic. And it's like, because somebody, finishes 5th in the Olympics, and it's like a picture of a guy with like chips all over his chest or whatever. The difference between a 10-300 and a 10-5-5 is very, very small. So as fast as Nyck Harbor is, especially at this point of his athletic career, when he was in high school, this kid is not far behind him. He's not 6'5", 240, but I would trade some of that for somebody that has this football experience and resume behind them. So that is my hot take for this Tuesday. Before we get into our final part of the show, I do want to tell you real quick about our friends at FanDuel. You guys have heard me brag about this a lot. Listen, we are currently, I don't know what day we're in, but I believe it's I think there's, starting last Thursday, we entered into a time where there's 56 straight days of football, whether it be college football or NFL or all that combined. From now until Wednesday, November 27th, we have football every single day. And I am fired up about that. I know who else is fired up about that. FanDuel. It is America's #1 sportsbook. Make sure, especially if you're a college football fan, an NFL fan, start the season with a big return over at FanDuel. I've told you about this before. They do a great job of, you can sit there and watch the games, right, as they're unfolding, as the lines change, as the betting lines change, as the odds change, all that kind of stuff. You can watch it with up-to-date stats, the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more. And you can do that in the same page that you place your bets in over at FanDuel.com. Also, if you are new to FanDuel, you can go there right now, place a $5 bet, $5, okay? And you get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed right away. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Go do it today. All right, we are going to close out the show as soon as we come back with a fun, some fun. It's not fun news. That sounds bad. Spencer Rattler news. It's good. It's positive. We'll get to it in the final part of the show coming up right after this. All right. So listen, guys, we are closing out the show. I appreciate you guys joining us along for Tuesday. We're going to get into the game day stuff about Bama coming up, probably starting tomorrow. I don't know if we'll do a crossover episode yet, but we'll definitely have some other stuff coming your way to get ready for game day this weekend. I'm fully aware there's a big game. I know South Carolina's headed to Tuscaloosa. It's a 12 o'clock start, 11 o'clock Central. It's on ABC and ESPN, all that kind of stuff. We will start breaking that game down tomorrow and work our way through the week. But wanted to get through this news today. Want to also talk about the other news. Now, as a lot of you guys know, I've talked about this before. My main job outside of this, working over at ESPN in Baton Rouge and then LouisianaSports.net. News broke right around the same time as the ESPN or the transfer portal stuff, about an hour before we were done, or about an hour before we started recording, that Derek Carr, the Saints quarterback, is going to miss several weeks or multiple weeks with an oblique injury after his game against Kansas City last night, which means Spencer Rattler, listen, he hasn't been listed as the second quarterback on the depth chart. Jake Haener has. Jake Haener's the one that's come in and filled in for Derek Carr. He filled in for him last night. But Spencer Rattler is now in consideration to be the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. Guys, that's such a big deal. Like in this day and age, especially with recruiting, that is such a big deal for that to happen. It's hard to explain because it's so easy, especially if you're in a program like this, where it's like you're trying to get new recruits constantly coming in, especially that position. We all know that quarterback is the most important position out of any position in all of sports, not just in football, but all of sports. So to have a former starting quarterback from your school starting in the NFL, huge. No word yet on if he will be the starter. It'll be between him and former Fresno State quarterback, like I said, Jake Haener. I'm sure they'll probably bring in somebody on the practice squad just to have some added depth as well. But potentially, former South Carolina Gamecock quarterback Spencer Rattler could be the next QB in for the Saints while Derek Carr's out. It'll be interesting to see what happens because the Saints just played on Monday night. They lost. They're currently 2-3. But they are about to play 2 games in 9 days. So if he does start, they will have to bring him along quickly. They did a really good job of that in the preseason, knowing that he might be a part of this game plan at some point. Because even before the season and before his first 2 games especially, Derek Carr was a guy that not a lot of faith is being put into with the fan base especially, but also a little bit with the coaching staff. So we'll see how it plays out. All right, that is how today's show is going to fade out. And I want to say thank you again for everyone for tuning in. Thank you again for making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. But also for your second listen, make sure you go check out Locked On SEC. Our host, Chris Gordy, he holds no punches, covering the best conference in all of college football. Gordy is one of my good friends in real life, one of my favorite people. Find Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. You will not be disappointed. I do a weekly show with him every Thursday. We will be on the SEC show with the rest of the hosts, like a little roundtable as well later today. We're recording it tonight on Tuesday. It'll be out on Thursday, but you will not be disappointed. Go listen to my man, Chris Gordy. He's a great dude and does a great job as well. That is all for today. We'll be back tomorrow. I hope all of you have a fantastic rest of your Tuesday. Go Cox. See y'all then.